welcome to Atlantic Television Network Society Watch. This is a program where we ventilate societal issues, give them aggregate attention with a view to provide solutions that will benefit humanity. Today's Society Watch will be looking at numbers of issues starting from Lagos State. Woman claims doctor removed her womb without consent. Still from Lagos State, men's role critical in combating domestic violence. On minimum wage, ASU threatened new strike issues 3 weeks ultimatum. On education, Nigerian who fails WAEC 17 times excel in USA. These are the issues we'll be looking at today. You can join us on all our media platforms, Facebook and YouTube, Atlantic Television Network, Instagram and TikTok, Atlantic TV Network 1, X, Atlantic TV Net. You can also watch us live on our website, atlanticnetwork.tv. When we return from this short break, I will introduce my guest for today's show. Do stay with us.
Like this now. I hope nobody carry. Hello.
Why you ask? Oh.
Because this road where they see so you don't guarantee safe delivery.
We just vote for government, but we not get good governance.
At all.
Road so in no day. Light up Pusa. The infrastructure come. We can't talk to for being pro policy.
Corruption. Well, everything. Hello?
Hello, ma'am. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Mrs. Ayeni. I am calling from the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs.
Okay. Okay, I've been expecting your call.
Madam, remove this your phone from loudspeaker.
I know best. Now my phone be like that. Hello?
Are you there?
I'm hearing you.
Yes. I saw a copy of your invoice for computers, printers, and laptops.
Yes. Are you working on them now?
Ma, the prices you quoted way too high now.
Madam, sorry, this don't cost.
We found the laptop you said is 1.8 million naira for 600,000 naira.
Hello?
Now my body network there.
I can't hear you. Network is bad.
Madam, we can hear you. Continue.
Hello, I can't hear you. We call you back.
Their behavior not good now.
Madam, now this kind behavior they kill a country. You suppose do things differently, make Nigeria for better.
This message is brought to you by the Akinfade Foundation, the MacArthur Foundation,
and with broadcast support from Atlantic Television Network.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is Society Watch on Atlantic Television Network. I'm just all smiling because I have a long-time guest in the studio. I'm talking about the English Department, University of Port Harcourt. And of course, his name is Ene Eric Ibifa. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Mark.
Happy New Year.
Good to be here. Thank you.
It's been a long time, and it's good to see you once again.
I think it's even better to see you.
All right. Okay, let's look at the first story from Lagos State. In Lagos, Dr. Ayela J. Joseph, the managing director of Holyfield Hospitals, is accused of removing Mrs. Okafor Susan wombs without her consent. Mrs. Susan's visit the hospital in February 2024 for fibroid removal. Despite a refusal to have her womb removed, Dr. Joseph allegedly proceeded without her knowledge. After the surgery on March 29, 2024, she was shocked to learn that her womb has been removed. When she inquired about her absence period, Dr. Joseph claimed she conceived, but Mrs. Susan insisted that she did not and was not neither pre nor post concealed. A subsequently scan confirmed her womb was removed without her permission. Wow, this is a very terrible one. I get to the hospital for a different thing, and then you are doing a different thing. There are some persons that the doctor is like, the only solution for you to be alive is to amputate your leg, and they'll be like, no, don't do it, I don't want it. And of course, most of the times miracles happen. What do you think about Susan's womb being removed? And of course, this is not the first time. There are so many persons walking around without womb, and some of them have fought this case and they can no longer fight, nothing to fight against, so they just have to leave it. What do you think about these issues? Medical doctors doing things that the patient has not given consent for?
Yeah, there are a lot of issues here. The first is about professionalism. I don't know the nature of medical training because I've never passed through it, but I imagine that medical trainee doctors will be taken through things like medical ethics, things like, the legal aspects of medicine. Before you even apply anesthesia to a patient with a view to performing a procedure, you need to get the patient to sign consenting to it. That's if the patient is compos mentis, that's as his faculties intact. In the event that the patient does not have his faculties or her faculties intact, maybe because a condition is psychiatric, then somebody with some nest of kin or some person close they are kin to her or him could then sign on his or her behalf. In some cases, some of those forms even require the patient signing and a nest of kin also signing. So I'm surprised that this is happening. Now, initially I thought it must have been a case of ignorance, but apparently it's now a case of he says, she says, because the doctor is saying that he secured her consent. But this is not something over which anybody should quarrel. If he did secure an consent as he claims, then indicate that. So, and then that will lay the matter to rest. But I think it's also high time we go out and educate Nigerians to realize that, patients have rights too. Sometimes we don't realize this, and that's why sometimes doctors get away with a lot of things around here. You see instances where a patient is rushed to the hospital, is not given care in time because they say, oh, he doesn't have the money to deposit. Well, with the oath that medical doctors take, the Hippocratic oath, which enjoins them to first and foremost save lives before, putting pecuniary and other considerations forward, but first and foremost life. So patients also have rights, and patients ought to know these rights. The doctor also has rights. He also has responsibilities. And there has to be that collaboration between the doctor and the patient for the process of cure, the process of healing to go on seamlessly. For me, I find this a very heartbreaking story, especially in our own part of the world, where in some cases the totality of a woman's achievement is brought down to motherhood. So if she's not a mother, it's somehow thought that she's accomplishments in other realms of life. So for you to then remove that essential part of a woman's body without her consent, if that's true, I think the doctor has to be sanctioned for his actions. And it is a sad situation. But again, it will also depend on whatever it is. Nothing would justify this kind of thing. Even if it's a life-threatening situation, one would expect that the doctor should have the presence of mind to let the patient know. Celebrities who've had their wombs removed, and they've even come out to tell their fans, that look, this is what I've put myself through. There are times when you have to make those difficult choices, but whatever it is, I don't think anything justifies the doctor doing this. But I mean, at this point, it's the patient's word against the doctor's, so we really don't know what the truth is. Sometimes the truth may be right there in the middle, neither on the doctor's side nor on the patient's side.
But again, you said something, of course, every medical doctors, they go through a particular oath that they take before, that's life first. And it seems the case is different because, yeah, it's as though it's money first before life. But again, aside that, is it advised one medical doctor to carry out operation without any other person there? Because if you go through the story, we didn't have a place where the medical doctor said, when I said this, apprentice was there, medical doctor was there, this person was there, and your relative was there. Like, there is nothing like that. Do they have one patient, one operation room, or I don't know, does that happen?
But under those circumstances, one would expect that, I mean, there will be some other doctors around for the procedure. But I mean, more than once, we've seen those kinds of instances. You go to the street and interview Nigerians, they operate on by just a single doctor. And the doctor to patient ratio in Nigeria is also an issue, you know, because of the syndrome. We have a situation where, you know, there is a mass exodus of some of our medical personnel because the pay is terrible here. I mean, especially when you consider the cost of training. So I won't be surprised if the doctor did that all alone. But even then, whether I did this alone or it did this in company of others, I would expect that any proper hospital would do documentation, knowing that, I mean, there will be the possibility of litigation tomorrow. And so, I mean, it's even in the doctor's own interest that you ensure that the paperwork is in order. You secure the patient's consent for whatever procedure. In fact, there are certain caliber of substances, I imagine, that before you even administer them on the patient, you also will get the patient's consent, because one of the possible side effects could even be fatal. So you get the patient's consent, you explain to the patient what the possibilities are. I mean, and that's why sometimes before patients are even put under the knife, doctors explain to them, look, the chances are 50-50, or the chances are actually 80-20. It's a very delicate procedure. You may not come out of this alive. The alternative is that you have, say, 2 or 3 more years to live. Would you risk it? And then some patients say, why not? I'll go ahead and do it. So I think the responsibility is more on the doctor in this instance to ensure that in his own interest, because in other jurisdictions, this could be sufficient reason to even withdraw his medical license. And imagine what that would mean. All the years of training, all the years of practice would have just gone to waste like that. So it's even in the doctor's own interest that he should take the steps to ensure that the paperwork for this kind of procedure will be intact and in order.
And you think they're going to take that kind of a step if eventually they found him guilty? Because you know the issue, we have a limited workforce in Nigeria because of the Japa syndrome you talked about. Many doctors have crossed overseas for seeking for greener pasture and conducive working environment. So what happened here?
The question would be, would you rather have many quacks or few actual professional doctors? I mean, this kind of conduct that's on the face of it.
Because in his own case, what is stated here is a professional medical doctor, even though, yes, no one is above mistake, we know that. He's a professional medical doctor, and they are still trying to fish out those quack doctors. But we have a few medical doctors. I mean, what do you think will happen here?
Well, I don't know the legal implications of this, since I don't have any training in law.
Okay.
Of course, when I say that it could lead to the withdrawal of his practice license, I'm not making a categorical statement. It's actually speculative. But I imagine that for this kind of offense, it may not lead to a case of withdrawal of license, maybe suspension or having to pay heavy compensation, punitive compensation to the woman. Because, I mean, like you rightly pointed out, we have a shortage of medical personnel. So if you have one person who makes this kind of, I mean, this is the kind of thing they call a peccadillo. It's just a minor error, sort of. It's not something
What's a minor error?
Well, to the extent that it doesn't involve, I mean, it wasn't a case of saying, I mean, if it was a case of, oh, he may have performed the surgery and then possibly left some of his equipment in the woman's body, or possibly where he was trying to, you know, put her back together, he misplaced some organ. That's a case of incompetence.
Okay.
In this case, it's incompetence on another level. It is, you may call this pre-operation incompetence,
But
not incompetence right. Yes, of course, not incompetence right in the. So it may just be that, oh, this is a damn good medical doctor, but who doesn't know law? Because this actually, when you look at it, it's at the boundary between law and medicine. So maybe he knows all the medicine while in medical school. He just took his medical courses alone. He missed the classes where other ancillary things were.
Another thing, I know that I was opportune to go with someone who actually went to do a fibroid operation like this. The moment that anesthesia has been given to you, you are not normal anymore. So at that moment, whatever thing that is said to you, you might just be saying yes and not exactly know what you are saying. So I'm looking at it, maybe it could be in that kind of situation, like the kind of medicine that was given, drugs that was given to our injection, I mean to say, that was given to her before the operation was carried out, because you can't do it normally. I mean, no human can withstand that kind of pain. I'm thinking maybe it was in that process that she said, yes, remove my womb, because she just want to be fine. It could have happened
like I said,
like
we are speculating here, but I imagine also that before you even wheel a patient into the operating room and administer anesthesia, paperwork would have been concluded. It's not when you administer, it's not when you after administering anesthesia that you begin to seek the patient's consent. However, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a surgeon, but I also imagine that there are certain situations in which emergencies may arise that were unforeseen at the outset of the operation, and then the doctor would need to do something immediately to save lives. In the process of saving lives, I mean, like, picture a situation where a woman is taken in and then for child delivery, and then it gets to the situation where within a split second the doctor has to decide whether it's the baby or the mother who would die.
Oh,
I mean, there are situations like that. So, but you need the woman's husband to consent. You also need the woman's consent too. Would you rather allow both of them die while you're waiting for consent, or would you say, well, the woman could conceive tomorrow, but if the woman goes and the baby lives, I mean, that ends it. So you can take that decision there and then. I'm sure that the law is not so stringent as not to factor in those kinds of possibilities.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you so much. Let's look at the next story for today, still from Lagos State. The Lagos State Domestic and Sexual Violence Agency has called for society leaders and residents to promote gender equality and highlight men's role in ending domestic and sexual violence at a cooking competition called Man We Sabi, held in Kola Market, Ikpaje. DSVA Executive Secretary Titilayo Viola Adeyeye emphasized the importance of male involvement in the marriage partnerships. Presented by Ms. Odumbo Otodun, he explained that the event sponsored by Power Oil X Nigeria Limited aimed to challenge gender stereotypes. The Iyolajo of Ikola Market, Kirikisu Lawal, praised Governor Samuel Olu's effort to create a supportive environment for both genders. The Lagos State Ministry of Women Affairs and Poverty Alleviation reported 662 cases of domestic and sexual violence in the past years. The issue of domestic violence, of course, is something that we are actually talking about as day goes by. And a lot of persons are saying that men undergo more of this more of domestic violence, and because men do not cry or they do not shout, so people don't get to hear about it, and it's always on the women's side. What do you think about this? How can men handle it when they are the ones involved? How can they possibly handle domestic violence in their families?
Well, they say prevention is better than cure, but it applies also in this kind of situation. I mean, there are moments. Quite often, people indulge in some kind of lengthy courtship before they formalize their unions. I'm talking about domestic violence. I imagine that we are talking about domestic violence in formalized unions here. So, I mean, the courtship period should be the period when people, observe each other closely, look out for signs of incompatibility. I mean, at the sign of any red flag, I imagine that the relationship should be terminated. That way you forestall instances of, domestic violence. But, I mean, even with the best effort, sometimes some of these things are unavoidable. I mean, economic situations can also bring out the worst in us. Imagine a situation where a man and a woman are together prosperous, and then there's a turnaround in their economic situation. A woman who normally doesn't nag, then, becomes an expert nag. And so all of those things are things that could stretch anyone's patience and then could, you know, increase the chances of domestic violence occurring. I think it's not just a man's responsibility alone, and I imagine that that's not what they meant. They actually meant men's involvement.
Yes.
Yeah, so it takes two to tango. So I mean, there has to be understanding on the side of the man. There has to be understanding on the side of the woman. With that kind of mutual understanding, I mean, it's not as if we won't disagree in any relationship. Of course, disagreement is a reality in human life, but you don't take the disagreement up to the level where you then begin to mete out physical violence on people. I mean, we live in a society where increasingly violence is encouraged. Sometimes even micro-violence that we don't even realize. I mean, some of the, I've witnessed people, you know, inflict, you know, heavy beatings on children, all in the name of corporal punishment. I mean, there should be a limit to some of these things. So I think that it is just by means of collaboration and cooperation between those in a relation. And of course, I mean, at the risk of being excessively libertine, even in a male-male or female-female relationship for those who are in the LGBT community, it's just the same thing. Once there is mutual understanding, once there is cooperation and collaboration, whatever differences you have, you could sit down. To give a practical situation, I mean, if you find that you have anger management problems, you could go in for therapy. And then one way to also do it is to walk away. If you know that, oh, your tempers are rising, you're getting to that point where you may begin to stop talking and begin to use your fist, you just walk away until when your nerves calm down, you come back again. I think this is something that ought to be encouraged. Just by the way, it's something other states should also emulate. Set up some agency like this too, and then ensure that you encourage people to come out and report these things. I mean, the figures mentioned by the Lagos State government are staggering, but for all you know, those figures are also very conservative.
Very conservative.
Many of these things go on unreported, especially when the men are at the receiving end. No man wants to go out and report that his wife beats him. In some cases, it's not even as if the man is weak, but some men can't also stand the sight of them, you know, inflicting some kind of pain on their women. So even when the woman strikes, they just refuse to strike back, and they don't want to go and report and then be called all kinds of unsavory names like woman rapper and all that kind of.
All right, they talked about gender equality there, and we are in a world where people feel that it's a man's world, all right, with excessive ego. So when things happen, where would this gender equality come to play? Because gender equality means, I mean, you are not bigger than me, I'm not bigger than you. We are one, especially when it has to do with couples. So when some of these issues happen, and you know that women operate with emotion, they want to do anyhow. At that moment, they're not reasoning. And then a man, when the ego comes up, they don't reason anything again. How can they balance this? A lot of persons have died. Making reference to the story we read yesterday, a man butchered his wife for things that he can't really give account of. We also saw in Rivers State here some months ago where a wife poured their husband hot oil in the name of, you didn't give me 1,000 naira. So how can we balance this? Where will gender equality come to play when it has to do with domestic violence?
Well, gender equality cuts across everything. It's not just down to issues of domestic violence alone. For me, gender equality means that nobody should be denied anything on account of their gender. So if a woman is the person qualified for this, give it to her. Don't say, no, we want a man here. We don't, this, we don't want a woman here. There shouldn't be any form of discrimination.
That is what I'm saying. That is what I'm saying. That with what you define, if the woman is the person that's supposed to get this, give it to her. And now we have a world where they are saying it's a man's world. So there are some things that should not be within.
But that's the problem. When you say it's a man's world, then
no, I didn't say. That's what they say.
I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about you in another sense. Now, when you say it's a man's world, then you're already laying the ground for inequality. Well, it can't possibly be a man's world. It's a human world. So all human beings will go out there and then compete. No, I've actually had a conversation with a friend who told me, I said, look, my ideal family is a family that is run along a democratic line. So if there's any decision to be made, even the children, we all sit down and say, this is what we want to do. Our car is getting old. We need to replace it. This is how much we have. These are the options. These are the cars we can possibly get with the amount we have. What do you think about this? What's the advantage of getting a Volkswagen over the advantage of getting a Mercedes? What about a Peugeot? and then collective opinions. Maybe you could say it's the man's remit or the man's place to take decision ultimately. But that idea of, involving other members of the family in decision making, it helps for bonding. It also gives them a sense of belonging. They feel that maybe they may not be equal partners, but they feel like equal partners in the union.
Okay.
Part of what causes the problem is when you give people the impression that they are being alienated. So, for example, in the case of the woman who poured hot oil on her husband, nothing justifies that kind of thing.
Okay.
But if a woman asks for something, the man says, look, this is why you're not going to have it. Not just to dismiss and say, what kind of nonsense is that? Who told you? Why would you be asking that kind of thing? But look, that money is not available right now. It will be available in 3 weeks' time. Or that money is available right now, but I don't think the reason for which you're asking it is justified given the economic realities of today.
Okay.
So there's a sense of reasoning going on. Part of the problem is when you put people down to visualize, you say, let's see now, see, it shows you how unintelligent you are. How can you be asking for this kind of thing at this time? I mean, there is a very, very disagreeable way of doing even the very common harmless things. There are some people that will say good morning to you, and good morning to you will seem like go to hell. So all of these things, communication, I think there is really no formula as such to say, oh, this is the formula against domestic violence. If there was such a formula, I'm sure domestic violence would have ended by now, because that formula would have been sold to everybody. And then, just as you have in mathematics, pi radius square, and then you get it. No, there's no solution like that. So it's just, and every situation is peculiar. So, I mean, what works for this family may not work for this family. And what doesn't work for this family may actually work perfectly for another family. I think it's about people understanding themselves and taking full advantage of the courtship process, getting to know each other. And then, before you go into any union, you set out the conditions that are unavoidable.
Okay.
I mean, these are the qualities I need in a partner. These ones are non-negotiable. If the person doesn't have these ones, no way. But if the person doesn't have these ones, I have a feeling that with the passage of time, I may possibly influence him or her to have them. But when you just allow the emotions of the moment to overwhelm you, and then you go into these things, and then, that's what breeds these kinds of situations that we are discussing now.
And I wonder if domestic violence will ever end, because understanding is very simple, but it is one of the most difficult things for people to actually flow along.
Oh yeah, that's why you have agencies like this one that the Lagos State government. So like I said, if it's possible to avoid it, avoid it. That's why I say prevention is better than cure. But where it's unavoidable, then some solution has to be cobbled up. I mean, if it's to dissolve the union, because at the end of the day, life is the principal thing. Sometimes if it's necessary to walk away.
So what impact would this agency have on this kind of thing? Because there are other there are other agencies that have been set for this, but so far it seems that controlling domestic violence is still difficult, and the Lagos State governor has come up with this committee or agency.
No, it seems that the agencies themselves are not doing their jobs properly. The problem we have in this country, people are just assigned duties. Some of them don't even know what those duties are. They are there just for the money. Otherwise, an agency like this ought to be active. Or in fact, an agency of this nature needs to have some kind of helpline, toll-free, that people can call at every time. You may be saving a life. So you have a toll-free helpline that people can call at all times. And then you have a unit for counseling. And then you have a unit for constant sensitization. An agency like this should be bombarding the airwaves with jingles about this kind of thing. So you draw attention to the problem. But there are some women who are actually suffering abuse without knowing it. They say, nah man, nah so then they do. Just leave them. Without knowing that they are actually victims of abuse. And nothing fosters abuse more than the collaboration, even inadvertently, of the person who is being abused. That's what they do now. So from one slap today, it gets to attacking you with a weapon, and then on and on and on. Sometimes it could be fatal. So if these agencies are alive to their responsibilities, we will know. They will be there in the public space. But I doubt if one exists in Rivers State.
And just imagine, these agencies, of course, are human, and one of them is involved, is having this kind of issues, coming to take care of another person. And you know that we are, like you said, some of them, they are just assigning duty, but to work is the problem. Just take it, an instance of fire service. Fire is ongoing somewhere. You call them, they tell you there's no water. that they cannot.
Yeah, so
So this one they can tell you I'm not in the mood.
Oh, but here's the thing: if you give somebody a job, you should give the person the tools with which to perform it. And if that person is serious, if you give me a job and you don't give me the right tools, I'll tell you, no, you don't want me to succeed. I don't like failing. So please, thank you for considering me worthy of this job. You can keep it.
All right. I hope everybody will do like that. Okay, this is Society Watch on Atlantic Television Network. We'll return after the short break.
Driver, why you just dey jack us up and down like this now?
I hope nobody carry belle o.
Why you ask, oh?
Because this road wey you dey see so, e no guarantee safe delivery o.
We just dey vote for government, but we no get good governance.
At all.
Road so e no dey, light o usai, the infrastructure nko e come turn to be forbidden fruit for the city.
Corruption, spoil everything. Hello?
Hello, madam. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Mrs. Ayeni. I am calling from the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs.
Okay. Okay, I've been expecting your call.
Madam, remove this your phone from loudspeaker.
No vex. Now my phone be like that. Hello?
Are you there?
I hear, I'm hearing you.
Yes. We saw a copy of your invoice for computers, printers, and laptops.
Yes. Are you working on them now?
Ma, the prices you quoted are way too high now.
Madam, sorry, oh. Please don't cost.
We found the laptop you said is 1.8 million naira for 600,000 naira.
Hello?
Now my body network there.
I can't hear you. Network is bad.
Madam, we can hear you. Continue.
Hello, I can't hear you. We call you back.
Their behavior no good now.
Madam, now this kind behavior they kill our country. You suppose do things differently. Make Nigeria for better.
This message is brought to you by the Akinfade Foundation, the MacArthur Foundation,
and with broadcast support from Atlantic Television.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is Society Watch on Atlantic Television Network. And now the rest of our stories. The Academic Staff Union of Universities have given the Nigerian government a 3-week ultimatum to address their demands or face industrial action. This warning was issued by Comrade Salim Ahmad, chairperson of ASU Federal University Diocese branch, during an emergency press conference. ASU claims the government has ignored their effort to resolve issues since May 2023. The core issues include renegotiation of the FGN/ASU 2009 agreement, university funding, withholding salaries, and inefficiencies in the IPPIS payroll system. Ahmed urged the government to meet the ASUs to avoid a crisis in the university system and announce plans to mobilize members if demands are not met. Well, first of all, I'm glad that you are in this line, so you would understand better. Of course, I've already spelled all of those things. Why do you think the federal government keep dragging feet when it has to do with ASU?
But I don't think you should be happy that I'm in this system because it makes me partisan. So I think so it will be difficult for my views to be objective. But I speak as somebody who is a Nigerian now, not as a member of ASU in this particular instance. Okay. And I think it saddens me when I look at what we've done, not just university education now specifically, but teacher education as a whole in this country. We've reduced it to a joke now, and you know it's become a game of numbers. So every governor wants it to be in his own name, that he set up a university or set up a polytechnic, and these are governors of states that already have tertiary institutions that are not even adequately funded, and then you're setting up new ones, stretching thin even the lean resources of the state. So I think part of the problem arises from that. And then these issues have been lingering since 2009. I mean, we've had series of governments between then and now. If I remember correctly, we've had Yaradua, we've had Jonathan, we've had Buhari, and now Tinubu, 4 presidents, and then this matter has proven to be intractable. Or this problem has defied all solutions. It's either they are not willing to solve it, or someone is profiting from these problems. And what are these issues? These are not difficult issues. I mean, if people are telling you that there are flaws in the system that you use in paying them, that system is inimical to the autonomy of universities, universities ought to be autonomous to a certain level. Nobody gets 100% autonomy, but at least even in the area of staffing and recruitment, universities ought to be autonomous. If I'm the administrator of a university, that is if I'm the vice chancellor of a university, and then I attend the conference, and then I see a young scholar who presents the paper at that conference, potential. And I find he's unaffiliated, or there's something called pushing, or he's not very comfortable in the university he's working at. I could walk up to him and say, look, would you mind coming over to my university? And then I do the proper the paperwork behind this, and we get him over. That's how some of the finance academics got employed in this country. Some people just went, some people maybe as deans of faculties or heads of departments even went out as examiners in other universities, and while examining doctoral candidates and other postgraduate candidates, they just see a young person with plenty of potential. So this person is young. If we employ him now and then, you know, give him 4 or 5 years of training, we can get a perfect product out of this. But the IPPIS system does not allow that. For you to employ anybody, you need to go through the Ministry of Education. I don't think there is any part of the world where that kind of thing happens. And I mean, it's something that if the government has a counter argument, the government should come out with it. The government is saying that IPPIS was introduced in order to, you know, take care of low and multiple pay, but there are exceptions. In the university, it's not illegal to earn multiple pay once every 7 years. You could go on sabbatical. Okay. When you go on sabbatical in another university, you get paid in your own university as well as in that university. It's not a... If IPC, you can make exceptions. You can't just... There are rules that, I mean, when the government started what they call the... single down TSA. All government agencies are supposed to be part of it. And people say, look, INEC cannot be part of this. You can't expect INEC to be part of this. And INEC was removed. So the same thing with IPPIS. If the universities have a compelling argument for you to exempt them from IPPIS, for the good of the system, you should do that. Recently, the government even compounded the problem by then dissolving the governing councils of the universities, and then it took a very long while to constitute new ones. I don't know when those ones are going to be, when they are going to take office, but they were just announced, I think, last week. But I mean, these are things that are legal. The statutes of the university, now the statute setting of the university spell out the governing councils. But once a government comes in, you just dissolve. Even when, in this instance, it seems that the governing councils were just newly inaugurated by the government that was going, the government of Buhari. And then this government came in and just you know, in one fell swoop, dissolved all of them. And then now you set up a new one. Usually you bring party members, those who contested elections and possibly didn't succeed, and then they've been stranded. They didn't get ministerial appointment, didn't get appointment as commissioners, didn't get ambassadorial appointments. Then you accommodate them and then pack them. So they go to university not to add value, but they see the university as cash cows for them to make money from. I mean, what kind of system is this?
But we are also in should I say, in a world where we feel or believe is always the way forward. And I know that many a times has to have gone on protest uncountably. And then at this point, they have given them, the federal government, they do not give them that demands, they would definitely go on a strike. I mean, to protest. What is the tendency that if they protest, they will hear? Remember, it is written here, and you also confirm that it's since 2009 that this matter has lingered. And up till today, I am sure that they have protested once or twice since we have 4 presidents that has been on seats now. So what would happen when they protest? Is that the way forward? And if the ASU has been handling it in a particular, a certain way, why have they not devised another means of bringing the government to hear them?
Well, this is how I see it. First, I'm ordinarily an optimistic person,
Of
but
course.
I can tell you for free that the government won't even. It's possible that the government doesn't even know of this ultimatum.
Okay.
It's at the expiration of the ultimatum, when ASU then goes on strike, that the government will then possibly allow the strike linger for a month or for 3 weeks, and then they'll be, oh, wait a minute. It's your problem. So if I know the government, how the government works, that's how this matter will proceed. Now, with regard to your question about ASU using this same method all the time, I think the answer for me is a simple one, and it's not a new question. It's been asked all the time. If you're up against a problem and the most effective weapon in your hand is supposed to be your weapon of last resort, because I mean you don't use your strongest weapon first. It's when all that you use it, and then each time you even use that strongest, even when you use that strongest weapon first, it doesn't avail much. What do? The strike is the most potent weapon, and if we decide, oh, okay, we'll stage a demonstration, that's even worse. By the way, by the time we go on the streets and begin to stage demonstrations, what will happen to our duties in the classroom? So the most potent weapon in ASU's arsenal is to down tools to go on strike. So sadly,
don't you think that's why the federal government is dragging feet? Because if you're saying if they decide to go on a protest, what happened to what is supposed to happen in the classroom? Don't you think that's why the federal government is like, we know that no matter how much they will still go back to the classroom, they will still do what they have to do?
Yeah, that's the problem. I mean, like I said, I began by telling you that, you know, there's a problem facing tertiary education in Nigeria. And by the way, it's not even tertiary education alone, education as a whole. We have a population, now we don't even know exactly what our population is. There are states where you'll be scandalized at the number of children who are out of school. I mean, even in Port Harcourt here, as seemingly civilized as River State is, a few days ago, I was at a friend's shop and then I saw a little boy walking, even though it was late in the day, beyond school hours. As I was buying the items from him, I asked him, because I often do that, engage him in conversation. What's your name? He told me, where are you from? I hope you attend school. I said, no. So we still have cases of out-of-school children, even in states like Rivers. So we don't even seem, so the problem is not, the problem is just that, I mean, it's not peculiar to ASU alone. It's the government's own disposition towards education. And I mean, it's not difficult to look for the reason for that. When you have a situation where government officials are not even stakeholders in the educational system because their children are not there, so they are not interested. They send their own children to the finance schools outside of the country. They pay whatever those people ask them to pay. Quite often what they pay is twice what the indigenous students in those places pay. It is their own money that they use to subsidize education for the indigenous students, but they don't mind. And then when it gets to Nigeria, they tell you, I'm part of, and then, you know, and maybe I should just even say this. Each time people talk about us, oh, you people are crazy about us. What people don't know is that the government has always, and it's not just this government, probably all governments in Nigeria have always said, oh, let us reintroduce tuition fees. Let us, at the university level, let us make students pay for this thing. Part of the problem is that students don't pay anything. Let them pay for this thing so that you can make money. We can't be funding education. You need to generate money from the tuition fees of these students. And you say, look, in a country where you're talking about multidimensional poverty, if you commercialize education, public education, if you make federal universities, public universities, universities owned by government, operate at the level they are supposed to operate in terms of fees, not many people can afford it. Not many people. So you're going to deny people access to education. And then look at our priorities. We are spending money funding pilgrimage. Why can't we use that money to subsidize education? But it's just a case of misplaced priorities, really. So the problem with the situation is that you're talking about one and then somehow you're dragged onto another one.
Another one. All right, thank you so much. Let's look at the last story for today. In November 2019, Emmanuel Oluwasayumi Amadu, a mass communication graduate from the University of Benin, shared his history with Demola Akinyomi at the Vanguard office to Ilorin. Emmanuel took the WAEC/GCE exam 17 times to avoid cutting corners before securing admission to universities. His resilience gained international attention in 2018 when he won the International Award for Student Brand of the Year in West Africa. Emmanuel graduated in 2018 and was recognized by the Vice Chancellor for his extraordinary achievement. He received multiple awards, including Most Innovative Student in Nigeria and Media Personality of the Year. After his service years, his family helped him raise funds to study in the U.S. He enrolled at Cleveland State University in 2021 for graduate studies in schools counseling and later transferred to Goya-Hoda Community College. In June 2024, Emmanuel received an honorable doctorate degree in international affairs from Global Seminary University for his contributions to peace and mental wellness. He was also honored as a professional doctoral fellow by the Across Global Institute of Foreign Languages. Emmanuel's work in mental health advocacy has reached over 100 million young people globally. In the U.S., he served as student government president at the Goya Community College and received an award for his leadership in mental health advocacy. He currently serves as a peer reviewer and judge for the U.S. Department of Education mental health grant programs. Emmanuel is actively involved with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention in OHA, serving on several committees and earning awards for his effort. His research and initiative including the RISE Global Voices organization aim to promote mental health awareness and support for young people worldwide. Emmanuel's vision includes launching to a social networking platform for trauma survival and collaborating with human service agencies to tackle mental health challenges. Okay, I want to ask a simple question. We have heard Emmanuel's story. According to him, he failed 17 times. He wrote WAEC 17 times and he didn't get it. Is education or is examination a true test of knowledge?
No. But it is the most accurate test of knowledge available. And examination doesn't have to be written alone. So when people say examination is not the true test of the mean examination, I imagine that they mean examination of any kind, including the one they call viva voce, which is the oral examination. So examination is not the true test of knowledge, but it is the most reliable test of knowledge available. So, but in this instance now, of course, I mean, this is not, I mean, I'm familiar with a story that is similar to this. There's a very renowned Nigerian in the IT world, Philip Emeagwali, who is, I think is a professor in the United States now. I mean, took JAM, or the equivalent of JAM at the time, more than once, and couldn't gain admission to the university, and then eventually was supposed to be taken to the market to learn apprenticeship under the Igbo trade apprenticeship scheme. But then went to the United States, and then there he became a star. So I agree that sometimes education, that's why in some cases some people devise other means of evaluating their students. Sometimes as the students go on, you also observe them and then do the evaluation, not necessarily through exams. But I think this story is also quite it's a positive story. It's the kind of story that ought to be foregrounded, projected, so people will also listen. And then we live in a time when for some people, the rate at which people commit suicide, and most of it just goes unreported, but the rate at which people commit suicide in the country is getting alarming. But I mean, Emmanuel's story is really the kind of story that people ought to listen to. The story of somebody whose case seemed hopeless. Imagine taking WAEC 17 times. Amazing. And since they said it's WAEC GCE, so let's just assume that since they are done in the same year, so 17 times would mean about 9 years. So between 8 and 9 years, that's the number of years somebody will spend taking a single exam just, to make advancement in formal education. So it's the kind of story, and then see how it has ended. Today is globally recognized. His story is told all over the world. He's held up as an example to others. Say, look, don't think that your situation is worse than the other. I mean, there are some people who will give up after 3 tries or even after 4 tries. But yeah, it's somebody who after 17 tries eventually made it, and then see where it has landed him.
Meanwhile, have you failed any exam before?
Well, why not? I mean, we all fail exams.
You mean you have?
Well, why not? I mean, to fail exams
That
doesn't mean
sounds
you
strange.
fail. No, yeah, to fail an exam doesn't mean you failed. I mean, there are times you set personal, I mean, depending on how you grew up, you could grow up in a household where your parents take nothing but an A. So if you get a B, it's considered failure.
Are you
And then
serious?
sometimes you set your own personal standards to at 80%. So if you get 75%, that's a fail.
So your own case was a case of A and B.
Well, do I remember? It's such a long time ago since.
All right, I have to ask him because the first time I got to his office, man, I saw what they call books. We don't even have those kind of books in bookshop, but that's by the way. Like he rightly stated, this is something that we should use and bring it back to our life situation. And it does not matter your level, it doesn't matter where you are, it doesn't matter how many times you have been on the ground. You can always rise, and when you rise, your failure should be a stepping stone that if I fail, then I can always get another way to move forward. Don't ever allow yourself to be down for a lifetime. You can always stand tall. Look at the story of Emmanuel. He failed WAEC 17 times. I failed JAM not 6 times. I failed 4 times. And today, this is where I am. Thank you so much. I was tempted to say Dr. Ene, but it's okay. Thank you, Nivifa.
Well, I'm not carrying a stethoscope, so you will be wrong in saying that.
Thank you so much for coming on today's show. I hope to have you again some other time. It was beautiful having you in the building.
Great to be here. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, viewers. We had amazing time today. I hope you follow, and if you didn't, we have platforms for you to follow. But meanwhile, I am Immaculata Ibrikana. You can join us on all our media platforms, Facebook and YouTube, Atlantic Television Network, Instagram and TikTok, Atlantic TV Network 1, X Atlantic TV Net. You can also watch us live on our website, atlanticnetwork.tv. Remember that peace and unity are the pathways to progress. Good afternoon.